There used to be a strategy when it came to the NFL draft called draft and stash. And usually that would come down to quarterbacks. You would draft a quarterback and you would stash them on your roster in case you ever needed them. And in the event that you didn't need them, you had trade capital. And there is no team, in my opinion, better at that than the Green Bay Packers from the 90s. I wanted to do this today because I don't think a lot of people remember who Brett Favre's backups actually were throughout those 90s, those 90s and early 2000s, okay? Now, I will tell you right off the bat, I do not include Aaron Rodgers on this list. I know he was his backup for the long time, but Aaron Rodgers actually went on to become the full-time starter for the Green Bay Packers. The gentlemen that I'm about to mention were never full-time starters for the Green Bay Packers, but they did start on other teams. So let's get to the list here. 1993 to 1994, Brett Favre's backup, Mark Brunell. He ended up going on and having a legendary career with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He also played for Washington for a little bit and the New York Jets. He also played for other teams as well, and he's now the quarterback's coach for the Detroit Lions. He was Brett Favre's backup, but then went on and had a 78 and 73 record as a starter for all those teams I just mentioned. Ty Detmer, from 1993 to 1995, he was Brett Favre's backup. He went on to have an okay NFL career, 11 and 14 as a starter, played for a couple of different teams. Doug Peterson, from 1996 to 1998. Now, he admittedly was a better coach than he ever was a player in the NFL because he went 3 and 14 as a starter. But he's won a Super Bowl as a coach, Doug Peterson has. So, he's another Brett Favre backup that went on to do something. Matt Hasselbeck, he was Brett Favre's backup from 1999 to 2000. Went on to have an 85 and 75 record as a quarterback, led the Seattle Seahawks to a Super Bowl. They didn't win that Super Bowl, but he led them there. And, of course, everybody remembers what happened when he went back to play Brett Favre, and he said, we want the ball and we're going to score. Not one of his best moments, but, you know, obviously one that a lot of football fans remember. And then the last one on this list that I wanted to talk about was a backup for Brett Favre in 1999 only, Aaron Brooks. He went on to play for the New Orleans Saints, and he had a record of 38 and 52 as a starting quarterback. Was pretty good on some very bad Saints teams. But overall, Brett Favre's backups that Green Bay drafted and then used as trade capital, Brett Favre's backups from the 90s went 215 wins, 228 losses, combined had over 400 starts in the NFL, and had a winning percentage of 48%. That's pretty good stuff. That's pretty good stuff. Now, obviously, that's not, record-breaking, but that is kind of interesting that all those quarterbacks went on to have various, levels of success in the NFL after being a backup. You don't really see that anymore in today's NFL. A lot of times, if someone's a backup for one team, they might start a little bit for another team, but they eventually end up being a backup again. Some of these guys went from being a backup to being a full-time starter for a long period of time. Talking about Mark Brunell, Matt Hasselbeck, Aaron Brooks. So I just find that to be kind of interesting. And again, you don't see a lot of teams do that anymore as far as drafting guys and keeping them on the roster, whether it be just for trade capital or something else in the future. But you just don't really see that happen anymore, and that's kind of sad. But Green Bay, they kind of did the blueprint on that, in my opinion. If there's another team that did that, you let me know. But when I was thinking about it over the last couple of days, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a Green Bay thing. I don't remember anybody else really doing that in a similar fashion. Yeah, you could say Joe Montana, Steve Young, but I don't know that they had any other guys like that for the 49ers. So let me know. Let me know your thoughts on that, but I just thought that was kind of interesting.